Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. A 3-hour celebration of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. Hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and wild game cooking and just all of these things that are just so much fun and so much a part of many families' history and our state's history here in this wonderful state of Michigan. This is the first full weekend of May that you and I have talked. Welcome to the month of May. Does it feel like it in your neck of the woods? Probably not. Now, Pat Johnston here in the studio tells me the forecast coming up looks like it's going to be pretty nice. But man, it's been cold, hasn't it? Like unseasonably cold. Now, I did take a little I admit to taking a little break. We made a trip down to the Keys for a family wedding. Congrats, Devin and Sarah. It was a beautiful ceremony. The weather was absolutely wonderful. What a nice getaway it was. But it did cause me to start my turkey hunting a little bit late. Now, as a result, as we're sitting here in the studio, I've only been out 3 times. Now, I do plan to hunt tomorrow and the next day. And it's been an interesting season so far, as turkey hunting often is. The way I turkey hunt is it's not a run and gun. I turkey hunt more like deer hunting. I set up a blind, and I'm using that Wraith 270 see-through blind from Primal Tree Stands. I love that blind. If you have not yet hunted out of a see-through blind, you need to give them a look, no pun intended. Because one of the problems with blinds in the past is blinds had blind spots. And the only thing you could see out of was these little windows, right? So critters could sneak up on you. With these see-through blinds, like this Wraith 270, you've got a black wall behind you, but 270 degrees of visibility. You can see turkeys and deer and bear sneaking in from different directions. So I absolutely love them. So I'm set up in one of these. I've got decoys in front of me, and then I try to call a bird into my location. So I don't run and gun, and I am this year. I'm hunting with a dart and crossbow. I love turkey hunting and bear hunting with a bow. I think those two critters. I think God put those two critters on the face of the earth to be bow hunted. They're perfect for it. So I'm on my buddy Doug's property. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. But the birds are roosting off his property to a piece of woods to the east of us. I know right where they're roosting. I mean, I can't get over there because I don't have access to that property yet. I'm working on it. So I've set up about 75 yards. The problem is I can't call those birds directly to me because there's water between the roost and my blind. So I know from past experience what they like to do is either swing out to the north and hit a cornfield. It used to be corn. Now it's a plowed field behind me to the north, or they come off the roost and they walk this ridge to the south, and then they pop over into Doug's property out in the open again, about 150 yards south of where I'm set up. So, this is, I think, the 3rd year I've hunted there, so I have a little bit of sense of how the birds are moving through the property. I debated now, do I set up my blind 150 yards to the south, where I've had a couple of close encounters with birds, because I know they walk the ridge and then they pop out right there. You can see it's a deer runway, it's a turkey runway too they come out on. Birds, unless they're bothered, are creatures of habit. Or do I set up in the northeast corner of the property, closer to the roost, in hopes that I can call the birds around the water back in behind me? Flip a coin. What do you do? I went to the northeast corner. So I'm sitting out there. I hear birds on the roost, a couple of birds. All right, and they sound like longbeards. They're not short little gobbles. I think, okay, I got a couple of big birds, adult birds up there. They come down, they hit the ground, they shut up. No more talking. I have a hard time turkey hunting when I don't hear the birds. If I can hear them, my confidence is up and I know how to call and how to react. And I am more patient because if I know there are birds in the area, I'll sit there all day long. But if I don't hear birds, I start to second guess myself. So I called a little bit, no response. I thought I'm just going to sit here and wait and see what Mother Nature hands me. About 45 minutes, maybe an hour later, I looked down to the south toward where I was thinking about setting up the blind, and you know what it was. Out of the woods from the east walked two hens, and right behind them was a strutter. They milled around, feeding in the long grass, and that big tom behind them strutting, never gobbled, never made a sound, for probably 20 minutes. And I'm watching this whole thing. From 150 yards to the north, I can see a bird strutting for 20 minutes, 20 yards in front of where I was going to set up the blind. That's turkey hunting. So they wandered off, and I'm thinking this thing through, and I'm going, Avery, you should have just set up the blind where you did in the past. And so here's the really good part. Mid-morning, I broke down the Wraith, I picked up my gear, and I traveled that 150 yards to the south where the birds were strutting. I set up my blind in preparation for the next morning's hunt. And as I'm setting up the blind, I look to the north, and there are those two hens and that longbeard right where I left. That's why I love and hate turkey hunting. Doug's wife, Wendy, said the story reminded her of Bill Murray and Caddyshack chasing the gopher back and forth. Well, that is kind of what it feels like. Oh, but it's that type of interaction that makes me love turkey hunting. Now, I do have, I think, well, I'm working on getting access to that property to the east where the birds are roosted. If that happens, things will change. Things will change. So anyway, that's my turkey hunting story so far. I've got the entire month of May, so I'm not too worried about it. How's your turkey hunting going? I've had a lot of people send in pictures to the Facebook page, or you can email them to me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and I will share them on the page. It's still a continued concern across the state about turkey numbers being down. Now, I've been talking with some pretty knowledgeable people on this, and there are some very, very interesting theories out there that I hope to be able to follow up on sometime here in the next couple of weeks. I hope these theories aren't true. What else is going on? Oh, I talked to Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest. He says that they should start building my boat sometime in the next week or so. And once they start on those things, it doesn't take them long to make them. What I am going to have to do is lower the dock. I keep my boat in a marina. I just find it much more convenient. When it's sitting there at the dock on the water, I think I use it, and I fish more because I don't have to worry with a trailer and a boat launch. But the dock was kind of high last year, and with the dropping water levels, it's going to be way high this year. So I think we're going to have to drop the dock a little bit. Speaking of things to do around the house, I think it's just about time to put up the Goose Fence. We live, where we live has a pond in the backyard, and it's a beautiful pond, and I love it. And it's filled with creatures. It's filled with ducks and geese and muskrats and deer, and it's beautiful. But those geese, and I never used to have anything against geese at all. Well, now I hate them. They're like big flying rats. They make such a mess. So I've had this ongoing battle with these geese. How do you keep them out of the yard? I've tried different types of strings, different types of fishing line. I found that a snow fence, a short snow fence, and it's green, so it blends in. It doesn't look bad. I put that up, realizing that geese can fly over the fence, but they won't. But as I was doing a behind the mic live stream here in the studio before, somebody suggested an avian spray that they pick up at the local tractor supply store. They said, spray that on your grass, and it'll change the taste, and the geese won't come up and eat it. Well, that would be a little bit easier than a fence, that's for sure. Don't forget, May, right now, the month of May, is the time to apply for your Michigan bear and elk application. I will apply for an elk application, elk tag, knowing full well I'll never get it. But if you don't apply, you won't get it. I will apply for the third season in Newberry. Season starts September 25th. I am guaranteed that tag. I will be talking with Johnny Bowler. Johnny will be joining us a little bit later in the show, too. Well-known Michigan Bear Guide. After the break, Jason Carstens of True North Guide Service out of the Sioux. Then Johnny Bowler talking about bear hunting in the UP. Brenda Archambo on the sturgeon spawning run. Nick Green of MUCC with an update on the commercial fishing situation. And in hour number 3, Gerry Gostenik talking about bass fishing here in Michigan. And, of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. That's this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM and 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge. Let's go to Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And again, a reminder, if you want to sign up to be an MUCC member, you can save 25%, and it's not expensive to begin with. When you look at this discount using the promo code Mike, all caps MIKE, it takes it down to almost nothing. They're almost paying you to join MUCC. MUCC.org is the website, MUCC.org. While you are poking around online, I would encourage you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to Facebook, Facebook.com/True North Guide Service. True North Guide Service. That is the company, the service of Jason Carstens, who joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jason, welcome back. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
So, listen, where you are there in the Sioux, does it feel like spring yet? I mean, downstate, it's I don't know. It's a weird spring.
Spring is in full effect up here. After a long winter, all of a sudden we're hustling and bustling to get going with everything possible right now.
And what is it that your company offers? What kind of trips are you doing, Jason?
Well, I'm in the midst of changing a little bit right now, but my primary focus is fishing for Atlantic salmon, both fly fishing and spin casting, regular spin gear fishing for them. But now that I have Angler Quest, my horizons are broadening. It's such a tremendous platform. I still primarily want to focus on the Atlantic salmon. It's a tremendous fishery that we have, and but now I'm looking at doing a little bit more trolling. Starting this summer, I'll be offering some trolling trips for the Atlantics as well as my newfound love with this Angler Quest is I have been vertical jigging for lake trout.
Oh, man.
And I'm already booking trips on that, and that is an absolute riot.
Couldn't you anchor up that angler quest below the dam there and just fly fish from that? Use that as your platform?
Yeah, I do. I have, and will continue to do so. Yes. Last year, when I got the Angler Quest, I did it with the family, kind of testing everything out. And I tell you what, it is the best fishing platform I've ever been on. It's just so versatile. It's a riot. It's hooked up to my truck. Right now, when I'm done talking with you, I'm going perch fishing.
So you're like, Avery, get off the phone. I'm ready to go.
No, come on the boat. Let's go.
Yeah, it's, I've been telling people for years about that Angler Quest, and it's one of those things where you've got to get on them and experience to really to know what we're talking about. Do you do any small stream fishing? Did you take advantage of the opener last weekend at all, Jason?
Well, I did, but I was working on opening day, but I've been actually downstate going and doing stream fishing on the Asabo. I've got a good friend down there that also guides down there, and so I usually am down there through the winter, and then even periodically through the summer down there fishing. Most of our streams up here from the spring runoff, they're pretty blown out right now. So we haven't had the chance to do a whole lot of that.
Were you fly fishing on the Asabo?
Yes. Yep.
That's really your love, isn't it?
It is. I don't know. I kind of like that extra challenge. But it just it slows fishing down a little bit as far as, the environment around you, and you take a little bit more notice as to what's going on, and maybe you key into what they're actually feeding on and not just going for a instinctive bite all the time.
Well, it does take it to the next level, and I have no experience fly fishing, but what I can see from the outside is one of the things I am fascinated about it is it can be what you want it to be. You can be a beginner and approach it from a very basic perspective, or you can go just crazy head over heels and enjoy the experience equally on both ends of the spectrum.
Of course, just like with any sport or activity, very much so. I related a lot to kind of the traditional bow hunting that I love to do as well.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that. It kind of slows things down, and you're taking more notice because it's a different game, and there's a lot more factors that come into play, should we say.
Now, where are you going perch fishing today, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm going perch fishing in the St. Mary's River, actually in the upper river, so it's the Lake Superior side. We have a tremendous perch season in the spring up there. I'm hoping to start offering that probably next year for that. But we also have multiple spots that perch come and spawn in the lower river throughout the St. Mary's all the way down to Drummond Island.
Man, is there anything that doesn't swim in that river?
No, not really. I tell you what, the brown trout are pretty much called unicorns up here. How about that?
Yeah.
But that's been about it. We just wrapped up our smelt season. Had a tremendous smelt season this year, and just moving on to perch and getting ready for lake trout and salmon all summer long.
Well, it's funny you bring up smelt, because when you thought of unicorns, that was my next question. Speaking of unicorns, Jason, have you found any smelt? I'm not going to ask you where, but those are kind of a... Well, let me rephrase. Are there places in your neck of the woods where you can still find these fish year to year, or is it spotty and varies from season to season?
No, we are very blessed with still having a good smelt run, traditional smelt run, both on the Lake Superior side and on the Lake Huron and Lake Michigan side of the eastern UP. It varies year to year as far as when the run happens and maybe how dense the run is. This year was a very, very good run. People probably were able to do it for about a week straight.
Are you dipping them like the old days? Would it remind me of being out there 20 years ago?
Yes, it is. It's just like that. This was actually the first year that I took my two daughters smelt dipping, and I had them out in waders with headlamps on, and I had them dipping in the frigid water. So the tradition continues.
Yeah, your daughters, they're going to be hardcore. I can see that already.
They are my hunting and fishing buddies.
I see pictures of them out on the bow of that Angler Quest throwing flies like they're have 30 years of experience.
Well, they've got quite a bit of experience. If I'm not guiding, they're out there testing new flies and testing new waters with me. So they are my little fishing buddies.
Jason, with all these different types of fisheries you have there and the things that you have planned coming up, you're going to have to retire from your regular job just so you got time to fish.
It's there may be a clock ticking on that.
Good for you. Good for you. So right now, all right, so you're done chasing smelt. You've been chasing some trout downstate. You're going after perch now. So what's the next thing in the cycle? Once you get your fill of perch, what's next?
Well, in between going out perch fishing, I am trolling for splake, which is another species that we have that's tremendous up here. And then goes right into trolling for lake trout and for the Atlantic salmon.
Tell me more about splake. I don't think I've ever even seen one.
Splake are a cross between a brook trout and a lake trout, and they are stocked in certain areas here in the eastern UP and elsewhere in the UP, mainly in Lake Superior. And they are about the most beautiful fish you have ever seen. They very much look like a brook trout, but they get to be the size of lake trout.
Oh, my goodness.
And they have the tenacity of a brook trout where they just don't give up all the way into the net and spinning and swirling and making a mess of your gear. But they are an absolute riot, and they are very aggressive. They are a fun fishery. Mainly the fishing for them is just in the spring. Just here right at ice out. I know you guys have been without ice for a while, but we've only been a couple of weeks out of ice. There's actually still some ice flowing in the upper St. Mary's right now.
So do you find them up in the shallows? Do you fish them skinny water like we would browns down here?
Very similar to that. There's some certain bays that they like to congregate in, because what they're actually doing is they're coming in feeding on the smelt. So if you come on up here to do some smelt dipping during the day, you should go to that same area where you've been smelt dipping and go cast like spoons or rapalas, and you've got a very good chance of catching a splake.
From shore or breakwall or what?
People catch them right off of docks, marina breakwalls, or just go long line like what you're talking about, spring brown trout fishing downstate.
Well, listen, I'm going to keep an eye on your Facebook page because I can't wait to see what that looks like. I'm scrolling down your page right now. You are very active on this page, too. You keep it updated a lot, so that's a nice job on that, Jason.
Thanks. I try. I'll send you a couple pictures. My girls had a couple of master angler splake a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. We're talking with Jason Carson. Jason, can you give me a few more minutes?
Yes.
All right, we got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. Got to take care of some business, but I want to continue this conversation with Jason Carstens of True North Guide Service. You can find him among other places. Really, the best way to find anybody online anymore is just pull up your search, Google or whatever, and type in True North Guide Service, and you'll find lots of places to find more about Jason. But his Facebook page is facebook.com, obviously, / True North Guide Service. So go to Facebook and do a search for True North Guide Service, and you'll see a couple of great pictures of Jason's girls all bundled up in waders with their headlamps on and nets full of smelt in front of them. And boy, does that bring back memories. How cool is that? We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap up our conversation with Jason, and then we'll stay in the UP for the rest of the hour and talk with the bear whisperer, Johnny Bowler, coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. Linwood Beach really is Angler Quest Central. They were the first Angler Quest dealer, and they're full of Angler Quest these days. But they can help you out. I don't care what kind of boat you're running. The launches there are beautiful. The docks are beautiful. They have a full-service marine shop, a wonderful campground, just a great place on Saginaw Bay. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you're online, head on over to Facebook and do a search for True North Guide Service. That's the service of Jason Carstens, who's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jason, you were talking about those splake, and then during the break you sent me a couple of pictures. Holy cow, they are absolutely as beautiful as you described.
They are. Some of them you still get kind of have that spawning color as one of those pictures, and then kind of a summertime coloration of them as well.
Beautiful.
They are gorgeous.
How do they taste? Are they good eating fish?
They are. I relate to them a lot like lake trout, just not quite as fatty. They are a wonderful table fare.
Well, I got to believe all of your fish out of that cold water up there are pretty good on the table.
That definitely helps for sure.
Okay, so in your list of things to do and lists of different types of fisheries and fishing trips, do you have a favorite yourself?
Boy, that's a hard one to narrow down. My newfound love is jigging for lake trout. I started doing that with the family and friends last year, and really kind of got it dialed in and really learning some new spots. And it's been a fun break from my love of the Atlantic salmon. So that's been, that have to be right up there. But it all kind of depends on the season. Right now, my love for perch fishing is huge. Yeah. But then I mix in going fishing for the splake. So it just kind of depends on the season, and I'll take it and run with it.
Well, forgive my ignorance. Are you jigging those Lakers in the river, or are you out on reefs out in the big lake?
Out on reefs out in the big lakes, both Huron and Huron, Michigan, and Lake Superior. We've got I can hit all three within an hour from here. So.
Well, tell me more about that. Listen, I love to troll, but there's nothing like having the rod in your hand when a fish hits, and that's why I think jigging is so fascinating. Tell me more about that.
You know, it's you got to go around. There's a little bit of downtime driving around looking for them, but once you get on an area that has them, it's usually within a minute or two you're going to know whether or not those fish are active. And it's pretty exciting. When you do get on an active pod of lake trout, it's pretty fast paced. It's not uncommon to have multiple fish on at a time. Generally I'm fishing anywhere from 60 feet to 150 feet down. So it depends on the depth, how long your bait's getting down there in anticipation, and it usually ends up on the boat a race to who can get their lure down quick because they're usually going to be the first person to hook up.
So what size jig do you need to fish in 150 feet of water?
Usually using about a 2-ounce, like a 2-ounce jig and spoon. Sometimes I'll go a little bit heavier if we're in kind of a windier condition or we got some more current. But anywhere from usually a 3/4 ounce to I'd say a 2 to 3 ounce.
Well, and the other fish you were talking about, the Atlantic, I am also fascinated by those fish. And there are people who have very high hopes for those fish, especially in northern Lake Huron, that they could fill the void that the Kings have left.
I agree. I think that they are the future of our Great Lakes salmonoids. I hope that the DNR continues to work with Lake Superior State University, who's kind of the godfather of these Atlantic salmon. Roger Greel just retired from Lake Superior State University, and he's really the one that has fathered and mentored all of these fish and students to create this fishery. It's just tremendous. They are very opportunistic feeders. They don't require and rely just on bait fish. They will probably 80% of their diet is actually aquatic insects.
More like a steelhead.
They very much are. You'll find June bugs in them when you're cleaning them. You'll find the Army tent worms in them. They're very, very much trout-like. Tremendous time to fish them up here is during the hex hatch because they just gorge themselves on the hex mayflies. But you'll, like right now, if you went out trolling for them, you'd catch them with smelt in them. They're definitely feeding on smelt and gobies and everything. They're a great fish, and I hope the DNR takes a hard look at that, and that may be a viable option for us.
Well, Jason, you've got a tremendous fishery there in the Sioux, and you run a great service, True North Guide Service on Facebook, True North Guide Service. Folks can get in touch with you there, and I'm sure they can book a trip, and I think it would be a great time. Always a pleasure. I'll let you get on with your day. Have good luck with those jumbos, and we'll talk again.
All right. Sounds good, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Jason Carstens of True North Guide Service. Coming up, we're going to stay in the Yoop, talk with Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, because this is the time to apply for your Michigan Bear Tag. Well, and elk, too. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, AR-style, highly accurate, tough, and dependable rifles that could change the way you hunt. They're made in Lansing, just down the road from the governor's office. Check them out online at BrentonUSA.com. That's BrentonUSA.com. And if you use the promo code Avery, you can save $100 on your new Brenton rifle. BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com, and use the promo code Avery. Well, I've been saying that May is the time here in Michigan to apply for a couple of very coveted tags. Your elk tag, which you and I will never get, and your bear tag, which we have a pretty good chance, a lot better chance, because I know, for example, with just 1 point, am almost guaranteed the third season in the Newberry District that starts September 25th, and I will be hunting with my good friend, the Bear Whisperer, Johnny Bowler, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Johnny, how are you?
Pretty good, Mike.
Listen, there's a backstory here that I won't tell people, but I'm lucky to be able to talk with you this morning.
I'm very lucky.
So, Johnny, a couple of things I want to talk about.
Yes, sir.
I think if people live downstate like I do, and they want to apply for if they think they're going to get a Michigan Bear Tag, I think they should be reaching out to guys like you now, right? I mean, don't wait till the last minute.
Well, they should be looking for someone, but also I talk to people, if they think they're going to get a tag, or if they got enough points where they're going to get a tag, then they should be calling, when they are thinking about, applying for the tag.
Yeah.
In other words, they might be running to a little bit late and have to be looking for an area to bait on their own.
Yeah, and for most of the hunters, because most of the hunters are downstate hunters, that's a big hassle, maybe sometimes even impossible. I think it's much better to hook up with you or somebody like you, a local guy who's been doing it for a long time, who has the property and knows bears. Johnny, you've been doing it for 30 years.
Yes, sir. Going on 31 this year. What
have you learned about bears during that time?
Oh, boy. How to not try to fool them. It's kind of, there's a lot to learn, a lot of different directions that you can go. But when you're going after a big one, it's kind of hard to fool him when you're on his territory. But we can get it done. It's just, it takes a lot of experience to do it, though.
Can you target big bears, or here in Michigan, do we have to say, look, if you want a bear, you just better take whatever's coming into that bait?
I know everybody hears that you need to take 250 to 300-pound bear. Well, I'm just here to tell you that not everybody that's going to go out in the woods is going to shoot a 200, 300-pound bear. It's impossible. And I know I'll get ridiculed, but that's just the way it goes. There are some other guides in the area that are good, average, maybe way better than me. But there's a lot of hunters, Mike, and there's not enough 300-pound bears to go around for everyone. All
right, so what? I mean, again, Johnny, you've been doing this for more than 30 years. What's the average size Michigan black bear that your hunters have taken over the years?
125 to 150 pounds.
Really?
It's going to be an average Michigan bear.
Well, I'll tell you, Johnny, I have yet to shoot a Michigan black bear. We tried a couple of years ago when I was hunting with a recurve. You did put an animal in front of me, and I just wasn't able to make it happen. This year, hunting with the crossbow, I think we can move the bait back a little bit, and I really want my first Michigan black bear, Johnny. I'm confident you're the guy that can do it.
Well, you proved to me that you could sit still. We accomplished that because we did get the bear in front of you. We did end up getting a bear in front of you, but it took a week to settle him down so he'd come back. But they're just smart when you go out into their homes. You know what I mean? They're not. Sometimes that you can get lucky and go out and set for 10 minutes and shoot the bear and say it was easy, or you can go for years and not see one. It all depends.
Yeah. Well, I learned the key to sitting still is you load your phone up with movies and just sit there and watch movies.
Right. Until he walks out. We had a lot of trouble with them eating your blind, too. Or should we say just ripping it down?
Just letting me know that they knew that I was there.
Right.
Hey, Johnny, listen, I know you take a very limited number of hunters. Do you have openings for this fall?
As of right now, I do, because I talk to the people, but I don't take a deposit, Mike, for the simple fact is I'm not going to return your money. And when I say that is before you get a tag, you send me money to hold your spot, then it's going to go for next year if you don't get a tag.
Gotcha.
So I'd prefer, if you're interested, you think you're going to get a tag, you apply, you give me a call, say, hey, look, I put in for a tag. I'm not guaranteed, but I should be getting one.
Yep.
The minute you find out when you get the tag, give me a call and say, hey, I want to hunt, then we will do the deposit.
All right, Johnny, listen, I got to let you go because I am out of time. So if you want to get in touch with Johnny, you can find him on Facebook. You can message him there, or I can put you in touch with him. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I will connect you guys. And you might be hunting with the Bear Whisperer this fall, just like I hope that I will be. We'll take a break. When we come back, hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter. Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, heard on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, indeed, this is first and foremost a radio show. One of the few syndicated Michigan-based statewide outdoor radio shows in our great state of Michigan. And I do take a certain amount of Well, you're not supposed to be prideful, but I am proud of that. It's taken a lot of years to build this radio show and network up to where it is today. And I think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station, your local radio affiliate. We've got a lot of them across the state. But if you live in some part of our state not covered by a radio station, or if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, yes, this is a 3-hour show, it's nice to know that there is a podcast backup to listen to. Podcasting is like the buzzword these days. And when people hear audio these days, they assume it's a podcast. I've had people listen to the radio show out of their car radio and then tell me they were listening to the podcast. Well, so it is confusing. But again, this is a radio show. The best way I think to listen is on your local radio station. If you can't, the podcast version is available anywhere you get your podcasts from. It's also on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, the Facebook page, all of the different podcast outlets, and even YouTube. I know it doesn't make any sense to put a radio show on YouTube, but I do, and people watch/listen to it there. So feel free to check it out. As long as I'm talking about podcasting, another blatant self-promotion, because nobody else is going to do it, right? Nobody else is going to promote me if I don't. We have an Outdoor Magazine podcast network where each month I produce podcasts for offshore tackle, angler quest boats, primal tree stands, and polar craft boats. In fact, when we're done in the studio today, we will record this month's offshore tackle podcast, this time around with Nick DeShano, the guy who is running Offshore Tackle today. Regardless of how you are hearing my voice or when you are hearing my voice, a big thank you. I would not have been able to survive in this industry as long as I have without you. You know, in the old days of you watching the TV show, these days you listen to the radio show, listen to the podcast version of the show and the other podcasts. There's a lot of content coming at you these days. It can be overwhelming and inundating. There is a lot of stuff coming your direction. And the fact that you have found me and are listening to me, my voice, Mike Avery, I can't thank you enough. A lot of things going on in the outdoors in the springtime here in Michigan, right? Turkey hunting, fishing, looking for morels, just to name a few. But there's another thing going on in northern Michigan that is an annual rite of spring that I find absolutely fascinating. Brenda Archambo is a lady that I call the Sturgeon General, and for good reason. She has been protecting, promoting, educating the people of Michigan about sturgeons now for many, many years. And she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk a little bit more about something going on specifically right now or soon will be. Madam Sturgeon General, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Well, good morning, Mike. First, I would like to give you accolades for 4 decades of just speaking the word of what's going on out in our wilderness and on our waters. It's just amazing.
Well, I appreciate that, but all that means, Brenda, is that I'm an old guy.
Well, you know, I think we've been in this journey together. I'm, 27 years now in the trenches with, protecting sturgeon, doing outreach education, collaborating with researchers and law enforcement. And, but together we're making a difference, doing things that are really making a difference. So we've made a lot of progress.
I remember the first time, I think it was the first time I met you, and it was at a show, an outdoor show, and I don't remember if it was somewhere up in the northeast corner of the lower, and it was an outdoor show in a gym or a community center, and you and somebody else had a table set up, and you were talking about this Sturgeon for Tomorrow organization, and it was just in its infancy then, and look what you've accomplished.
We've made a lot of strides, our organization is an all-volunteer organization. However, I believe that throughout the years through, educating, engaging, and also mobilizing diverse constituencies around conservation, specifically with sturgeon rehabilitation and recovery, we're really making a difference. And we know that because our populations are rebounding. And it's pretty remarkable when you're talking about a species that doesn't mature till they're 20 years old. They don't reproduce every year. You know, females can live to be 150 years old. And so, you know, some of us won't be here to see the fruits of those efforts. But we are beginning to see that now up here in the Sheboygan River watershed. So that's really, you know, a lot of it right now is the legacy work. But it's just a thrill to know that people from all walks of life care and will get their bootstraps on the ground and be a part of the solution.
When you talk about these fish, I mean, you're describing a critter unlike anything else in Michigan. You know, a lifespan of more than a century. You know, they don't even think about reproducing until they're, you know, much older than a lot of other fish and wildlife even live. And the fish that we have in the waterway now, I mean, I don't want to put human characteristics on them, but the things that they have experienced in the past, I mean, they have seen Michigan go through some pretty interesting times, and not all of it favorable toward their survival.
That's true. You know, when we started, I actually began doing, you know, outreach in 1995 when I learned the state was developing a statewide lake sturgeon management plan. And, you know, in 1999, we incorporated and really started our first sturgeon guarding program. So this year will be 23 years that we're doing this. And to see the level of engagement and curiosity and inquiry from children, to learn more about, you know, what the demise was going on with the sturgeon. Now it really has just remarkable results in, you know, research, education, you know, the law enforcement community and the people, the human dimension side of conservation stewardship has really grown. And I think that's just really remarkable. You know, when we're out on the river, which right now we have started the guarding program, it's still quite cold, unfortunately, but we're just getting started up here. And with I hope the warm-up coming up this next week, we're going to see some active spawning. And, you know, the research are in the river. The guards are on site, and we're just waiting for them. There are some fish in the river, but there's going to be a big slug of them coming up shortly. So it's really neat to see, you know, again, a diverse group of individuals throughout the basin who care and will, you know, sign up for shifts for Sturgeon Guard. We've got ambassadors on site to greet them. And a lot of relationships have formed throughout those decades. So people come back every year. We certainly get new volunteers every year as well, which we're very grateful for. But to see the relationships that have built around. And so we call ourselves the people of the sturgeon.
I want to talk more about this sturgeon guarding program here in a little bit, but first a little history. Sturgeon are obviously native to Michigan, but what was it that took their population down years ago? What were the factors working against them?
A lot of it was the building of hydropower dams. And so we're going back a long time. And what happened is that fragmented river systems, kind of like having a clog in your arteries. So let's say they're born, you know, males are 12 to 20 years old, females are 17 to 30 years old before they will return to their natal stream to spawn. And they couldn't get back there. So fragmentation, pollution, siltation. In our area, poaching was an absolutely huge issue if the sturgeon are in the river reproducing. And people are removing them and poaching them, then we're not going to get offspring. And so we thought early on, you know, back in 1999, the first thing that we can do to protect them is to just be visible and low-key to deter poaching, working with our law enforcement and our federal covert agencies, along with our sturgeon guards, you know, to report any type of illegal activity. Through the years, there's been many shenanigans. Does it still happen? Likely. but not to the extent that it used to.
Hang tight, Brenda. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Brenda Archambo, the Sturgeon General from Sturgeon for Tomorrow, Black Lake, Michigan chapter. SturgeonForTomorrow.org is the website, SturgeonForTomorrow.org. After the break, we'll get more details on how you might have a chance to get involved in this sturgeon guarding program and maybe see one of these giant prehistoric fish in person. It is a real treat. SturgeonForTomorrow.org, SturgeonForTomorrow.org. More with Brenda Archambo coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, on WCHT 600 AM 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Tawas, the Riviera of Saginaw Bay, northern Saginaw Bay. I bet you've never heard it called that before. On WIOS, that's 1480 AM 106.9 FM, and you can hear us on the other side of the state in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based, family-owned VersaSkins, manufacturer of high-quality camouflage hunting clothes. And the concept is you snap on and zip on an outer liner to change the color from camouflage to blaze orange camo to snow camo. It's wonderful. To wetland camo. It's perfect. I was wearing my VersaSkins the first couple of mornings I was out turkey hunting because it's the warmest stuff I had. The cool thing about VersaSkins, too, again, a Michigan-based family-owned company, I used to have a promo code there where you could get a big discount. Somebody asked me about it the other day, and I said, I think it's expired. They said, no. So they went to the website, versaskins.com, and they put in the promo code Avery20, and they got a big discount on their order, so keep that in mind. Versaskins.com. Just change your skin for the season you're in. The season we're in right now is springtime. A lot of things going on across this great state of Michigan. Right now we're talking about sturgeon and the annual sturgeon spawning run in northeast Michigan with the Sturgeon General, Brenda Archambo. Brenda, let's talk more about this sturgeon guarding program. Now, is it just one river, or do you have several rivers you're keeping an eye on?
We really focus on the Upper Black River here in Sheboygan County. But as the season goes on, we have connecting rivers to Mullet and Burt Lake and the tributaries to those systems. So as it warms up later on in the field season and we see activity there, we do deploy some folks to, keep an eye on those systems as well. But for right now, we are focused on the Upper Black.
What's the water temp you're looking for to really get those fish going?
55 degrees is typically a good cue. Moon phase is also an environmental cue. But 55, you'll see them navigating. A few days ago, the water was 47. We've had some sunny days. It has warmed up a bit. The fish are staging and beginning to move into their spawning grounds. They're not actively spawning right now, but usually around 60 degrees, they're actively spawning. So hopefully with this warm up that we're supposed to get, things should be pretty active starting probably next week.
And can you actually stand on the bank of the river in spots and see these fish?
Oh, absolutely. It's just nature at its finest. It's quite remarkable. While we're there protecting the sturgeon and just being vigilant and looking for any kind of suspicious activity, we work hand in hand with conservation officers and report to them immediately anything suspicious, plate number, description, that type of thing. And I will say that over the years, we've galvanized many people that come back every year. And if you've never been a part of the Sturgeon Guard, you can still be a part of the Sturgeon Guard. our schedule is quite full, and we have sincere gratitude toward that. We'll be on the river. We started the April 24th. We'll be there probably through early June. But I know right now our schedule's pretty full until the May 25th. So the end of May through the first week of June, there are availability.
Are you doing research on these fish too? Are you tagging them or anything while they're in there, or just protecting them and letting them do their thing?
Well, at the same time that we are guarding, the MSU, DNR, and the tribes are in the river for the purpose of netting and tagging the adult spawners to collect biological data. So each year we get anywhere from 300 to 350 adults in the system. Likely more. We don't get them all. We have antenna arrays in the river that will ping when the tagged sturgeon go over those. So we know how many fish are in the system at one time, when they come up, when they leave. And we're just getting started. And that's important because we've learned a lot about early life history and reproductive ecology through the years because of that data set. That data set also is a key factor in determining what the allocation will be that is available for harvest. So that's the real important component. MSU, the DNR, and the tribes, they've really stepped up to, work together and collaborate in the river, not only during the spawning, but once we get 3 or 4 groups of sturgeon. They don't all come in and leave at the same time. But once they spawn, about 8 to 10 days, depending on water temperature, the eggs will hatch and begin to drift. And those fish, the larval fish, are actually captured in deframe larval drift nets and taken back to the nearby streamside rearing facility and reared out so that we can stock those fish in the fall.
Again, this has evolved into so much more than it was when you guys first had this concept of what can we do to protect these fish. I find this fascinating because, like with walleye or something, you can affect the walleye population one way or another within just a few years because they spawn every year. When you've got fish like this that live that long and don't spawn that often, you don't see the results. You don't see the benefits right away. So you guys have been extremely patient. I give you credit for having the patience to even stay with this until you can see some results.
Well, it definitely takes a lot of patience, that's for sure. And, we really, when we come together as a team, with, law enforcement and fisheries division. We also have forest management or forest resources because we get permits to be able to do all the things that we're doing in collaboration with, the research team and so on. But the progress that we've made, the knowledge that, the questions we've had and answered, we have more questions to answer, especially about we know when we stock the fish, their survival is very, very good. And we know that from doing assessments post-stocking. But when you have a population that has gone to it from an estimated 550 breeding adults to over 1,200 breeding adults in that short span, now we look at, 20 years, that's a long time. Well, for sturgeon, not so much. And, but yes, being patient, being open to collaborative decision-making, but understanding that our goals are all the same. How we get there is, at some point, we've got it's like a football team, right? The goal is down there. You've got one quarterback, you're passing the ball. Somebody needs there to pick up the ball, right? And so, right now, for me personally, it's really legacy work. Working on succession planning, being in these trenches for 27 years has been absolutely rewarding. It's just been a passion. But it's time to pass on the baton at some point. So doing succession planning is going to really help the organization survive and thrive. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Oh, it's we're talking about sturgeon in northeast lower Michigan, but those giant fish now, we're finding them all across the state, aren't we, in pockets at least?
Absolutely. You know, one of the initiatives that started several years ago is having the capacity to rear sturgeon and learn about, you know, feeding them brine shrimp, putting them on bloodworms. That's what they eat, you know. And that costs a lot of money, tagging them, rearing them. But we learned that, we've partnered with the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians, and they have a hatchery near Charleston, which is in northwest Michigan. So, you know, we collaborate with them, and our gametes go over to their hatchery. They rear and stock those fish into the Sturgeon River for mullet or Burt Lake. Since we've had the capacity, because of that, we are now able to stock in the Lake Huron watershed down in the Saginaw Bay watershed. And there are more and more incidences of people catching, you know, younger juvenile sturgeon in that water body. So that is, you know, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have thought that was going to happen, right? But these things have happened. You know, sturgeon in the classroom. We don't stock all those fish. We retain, our chapters retain a small number of sturgeon and deploy those into classrooms statewide to, you know, educate the children on threatened and endangered species, water quality, you know, climate, different issues affecting the Great Lakes. And then they raise that sturgeon. They have to do all the tank parameters and feed them and order them and weigh them and, you know, get all the nitrates, all of that. They learn STEM in the classroom. But when those students bring that small fingerling in the spring, this time of year, we're scheduling returns, and they release that fish back to where it was born, there's a magic moment. There are things that is hard to really evaluate and put on paper statistically, right? But our hope is that we are creating conservation stewards for the future.
Well, over the years, I think you've done a wonderful job of that, Brenda. Aside from being a conservationist and a very hard worker, you've been a master, and I mean this in a positive way, a master of PR and marketing and you know, figuring out how to get your message across. You've done a wonderful job. And I understand about the whole concept of, you know, eventually you got to find somebody to replace you. Nobody's ever going to fill your shoes. I'll tell you that.
Well, Mike, think about this. You've been in the trenches 40 years. Succession planning is important if you want your programs to continue. It's with everything. You know, through the years, so many people, you know, whether it's the DNR or partners, people are retiring left and right, especially now after this long. And it's like, you know, I'll always be connected with it, emeritus, whatever. But there are a lot of good people that are passionate about the movement that have rose up through the years from, you know, scheduling volunteers to just so many different things.
Well, Madam Sturgeon, Brenda, listen, I'm out of time. I've got to let you go, but it is always a pleasure to talk with you, Madam Sturgeon General. Keep up the good work. Wish you nothing but luck in the future, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
Brenda Archambo of Sturgeon for Tomorrow. The website sturgeonfortomorrow.org, sturgeonfortomorrow.org. We'll take a break. Nick Green of MUCC coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, again, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives, rapidriverknifeworks.us, handmade, custom-made pieces of art, functional, beautiful, something you could pass on for generations. Check out the showroom. If you get a chance, check out the showroom on US 2 just outside of Rapid River, or Go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I carry it with me all the time, but they make not only folding pocket knives, fillet knives, kitchen knives, skinning knives, caping knives, well, same thing, gutting knives, you name it, they make it, and they make them very well, exceptionally sharp, beautiful, and designed to last for years. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. I want to turn our attention now to Lansing, MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer. He joins us now on the phone line. And Nick, it looks like you guys have had a pretty busy, pretty interesting week.
Yeah, it's been busy. Just quickly add that Rapid River also makes a trout and a grouse knife for those that are into the finer things in life.
Very nice. Well played.
Yeah, so MUCC right now is in the middle of kind of a big policy push to try to get our commercial guiding legislation we've been working on for a few sessions across the finish line. So that's a big priority for us. We're working with folks like Michigan Trout Unlimited, Ducks Unlimited, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Congressional Sportsmen, the National Deer Association. They have all signed on to this. We're kind of the tip of the spear leading the charge, really trying to codify our commercial guiding here in Michigan and ensure that we're not having bad actors out there in the woods taking folks hunting and fishing.
So again, this is the commercial guiding issue, not the commercial fishing issue.
This is commercial guiding. So these are House Bills 5358, 5359, 5360. These are bipartisan sponsored. They were passed out unanimously from the House Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation Committee. We are asking folks to contact their representative and urge them to pass this on the House floor.
From what you've seen in past experience, and you guys have been involved in several scenarios like this, when your members do respond to your requests or your pleas, do the politicians listen? Does it make things happen?
They do. One thing we have going for us is that we don't often send out the generic form emails that you see from folks like HSUS or the anti-hunting organizations. We take a little bit more time with our communications. We encourage folks to really think about the conservation kind of mindset and craft their communications related to them and how they see it. And that legislators know that. I mean, they can tell when they're talking to an MUCC member or someone who has been reading our communications because there is a greater breadth, there's a better understanding of the topic. So yeah, I mean, it's noticed. It's they talk about it with us. Any grassroots action helps to move the needle much bigger than lobbyists and big money.
I've been noticing too some posts you've put out there lately, promotions. In fact, talking about the next magazine coming out. I like the twist, maybe the direction that I think you're taking on this. You're doing a great job of teasing, some of the stories coming up. But I think you're talking about these modern sporting arms, ARs, right?
Yeah. So our summer magazine will feature a Michigan-made story about AR kind of rifles and the modern sporting rifle. And I would go so far as to just say it's the modern rifle. It's doesn't even need the word sporting in it.
True, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited. Look for that on newsstands June 1st. You can find that at Kroger, Walmart, Meijer, CVS, Rite Aid locations throughout the state.
You have taken that magazine, MUCC in general, but I know you have spearheaded this and really taken it to the next level.
Appreciate that, Mike. It's something I'm kind of learning and growing with, and I think we're finally getting to the point where folks are noticing it and they're re-engaging and wanting to see it kind of in the form it once was. There's been editors that have helmed this that are famous and known throughout Michigan, and just the history that's archived in our magazine is something that we can't lose, and it's something I hope to carry on.
Nick, before we let you go, I'll give you a chance to make a blatant plea. Why should folks think about joining MUCC?
There isn't another statewide organization that really has your rights to hunt, fish, trap at the forefront. We are a conservation organization and all that entails, but we're most known for our policy lobbying and advocacy. And, whether it's gun rights, whether it's what you are able to do deer running, rear hunting, leaning your gun on a tailgate, we're working for you, trying to help protect your rights. You can go to MUCC.org to join.
That's interesting you bring up that leaning the gun against the tailgate. That is something that you and I will follow up on the future. But, yeah, that's an interesting topic, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Also, Nick, I appreciate everything you're doing there at MUCC. I'd send people to the website, mucc.org, mucc.org. If you are a new member signing up, you can use the promo code Mike, all caps, and save 25%. Thank you, Nick. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Mike.
Nick Green of MUCC, the website, mucc.org, mucc.org. Again, use the promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E. We got several promo codes out there. You can use the promo code Avery on a Wraith 270 see-through blind or anything on the Primal Tree Stands website. You can use the promo code Avery at BrentonUSA.com to get $100 off one of their rifles. Mike 20 to get a big discount on MichiganBrand.net, Michigan Brand Meats. Avery 20, I think the VersaSkins promo is still out there. See, I'm saving you money. We'll take a break. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us in Newberry on WNBY, 1450 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show and ask me a question. But this time, a little bit of a different twist. I'm actually posing the question myself. I had a situation where I thought I bought my licenses, my hunting and fishing licenses, online at the DNR website, michigan.gov/DNR. And I walked away and didn't complete the process. I went back to, so I'm looking around for my licenses and I can't find them. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I didn't get them after all. So I go back to the website, tried to buy them again, and they said they weren't available. And I thought, well, darn it, I did buy them, but I don't know where they're at. Turns out, user error on my end, I had put them in my electronic shopping cart, so they weren't available, so it was my fault. But it got me thinking about this whole concept of buying licenses online and how this whole process works. Tom Weston is with the DNR. He's really the guy who's kind of in charge of this, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tom, welcome to the show. Appreciate your time. How are you?
Very good, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Well, tell me this whole process here. What should we, as hunters and anglers in Michigan, be aware of? Are there things here that maybe we could be taking advantage of that most of us don't?
Absolutely. And as you might have heard, we went to a new licensing system in 2020, which replaced our 22-year-old system. We installed new hardware at our 1,580 license agent locations across the state, and a new e-license website, which unfortunately you've had some experiences with. We're seeing about 20% of our customers buying online. That's increasing every year. You know, as e-commerce increases across the nation, so does license sales. And I really appreciate you giving this opportunity, because there's a lot of neat things that are available out there to hunters and anglers that they might not be aware of.
Like what, Tom?
Really, the first thing is to talk about the situation you had, lost licenses. Every year, customers will buy their combo deer licenses, their fishing license early in the year. They can't find it come hunting season. Now, if you lose your fur harvester license, your base license, you can go back to any license agent in the state, and the cost to replace that license is $3. Now, if you go online and create an account with an ID and password on the e-license, which can be found at our michigan.gov/DNR website, you can actually see all the licenses that you bought that year, and you can actually reprint that license for yourself. And you save yourself a trip, save $3. You can print it off on your printer at home, or you can easily save it to your smartphone and always have it.
Yeah, I do love that. And speaking of convenience, I got thinking the other day, I buy the same licenses every year. What if, is the concept of an auto renew, is that out there? Is that something that would be beneficial?
Yes. And yeah, we did a little cyber stalking on you, Mr. Avery, with your commission prior. And we see you do buy a hunt fish combo every year. Now, if you buy that license online, we'll of course mail you all the kill tags. We'll email you your fishing license and your base. But once you buy that online, there's a little button next to it that says automatically renew. When you check that button, what that means is a year from now, next March 1st, is that we will send you emails weeks prior saying, just a reminder, you signed up to automatically renew this license. And then when the new license year starts March 1st, we'll automatically renew that license and we'll mail it to you.
Tom, I had no idea that was out there. I will take advantage of that.
Yeah. Now, what's really important, since right now it's May, which is bear and elk application time, you can't automatically renew a bear license because the bear management units change each year, and so does the elk units. But every year, customers sometimes forget to buy their bear points or their elk chances. This year, if you come to e-license found at michigan.gov/DNR and you sign up to purchase a bear point or an elk chance, go ahead and check that automatic renew button, and we'll renew those points and chances for you next year, so you never forget.
Oh, man. I had no idea these things were out there. This is wonderful. And I'm a big fan of buying them online. I do a lot of stuff online, and it just makes it so much easier. And, Tom, I appreciate you letting me know about this. This auto-renew is really, really slick. The website, michigan.gov/DNR. Right, Tom?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the info. I appreciate it. I will take advantage of this, and I will let others know that the options are out there. Tom Weston of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Did you know there was an auto renew? I didn't know it. And if you're like me, you probably buy the same things over every year, right? I buy my all species fish, I buy my base license, and I buy the combo. And, of course, I get them the turkey tags and all other stuff, too. But very interesting. Michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk about bass fishing in Michigan with Gerry Gostenik of Great Lakes Bass Fishing. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. That's coming up here on Outdoor Magazine. Oh, a quick reminder, too, happy Mother's Day to the moms out there. My wife, Denise, my mom, Peggy, my mother-in-law, Eddie, my daughter, Jessica, and my daughter-in-law, Jessica. Happy Mother's Day. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. Happy Mother's Day weekend, by the way, to moms that are listening. Moms are the glue that holds the family together. We owe you all very much, so I hope you have a very nice weekend and a very nice Mother's Day. Springtime here in Michigan. We've been talking about that concept throughout this entire show. It seems like it's maybe been a long time coming this year. Weather's been a little bit cold. Now the forecast looks interesting for next week coming up, like it might warm up nicely. But regardless of the weather, the seasons change when they do, but there's a lot going on in our great state. I've talked about this before. I've been blessed to be able to see a lot of this country and Canada and Mexico and more throughout my career. And I was always excited to come back to Michigan. I love this state. I am a Michigan fanboy. I do not deny it because there's so many different things to do here. You know, this time of year right now, you're chasing morels. You're looking for morels. You're chasing turkey. Maybe you're walleye fishing. Maybe you're salmon fishing. Maybe you're steelhead fishing. Maybe you're bass fishing. Now, that's an area that I don't pretend to know much about. I've caught bass. I've enjoyed it. They're hard fighting fish, but there have been very, very few times I've targeted those fish. But I do think it's very cool that Michigan is such a well-known hotspot for bass fishing across the country. Nobody knows that better than our guest this hour. His name is Gerry Gostenik. He's a bass fishing guide. And his website is greatlakesbassfishing.com, greatlakesbassfishing.com if you want to learn more. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Gerry, welcome back. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. Where do we find you now? Are you on the water somewhere or thinking about being on the water?
I am not on the water. I think this is the first time in several years that you've called me, and I have not been on the water.
Why?
Well, we've got some pretty stiff north wind, and it's just been a real rough spring for us guides, that's for sure.
It has been, hasn't it? I mean, hopefully that's going to turn around here soon, but it's been a cold spring.
I mean, it seems like the last 3 weeks we've had a couple days a week where the weather's been nice, and I've already had some really, really good fishing, but hey, I can deal with the cold and everything else, but when you throw the wind in there, especially on, big bodies of water like Lake St. Clair, it can make things tough. It can really limit the areas where you can fish. And, also what happens too, when the wind comes, it'll dirty the water up, and dirty water and smallmouth are not good most of the time.
Well, and you talk about it being cool. Cool temperatures, of course, affect water temp, and that changes everything too, right? I mean, fish live in the water, so the water temperature is one of the main factors that you have to consider, I would think.
Yeah, all the time. But what can happen in the springtime too, especially with a crazy spring like this, is the water will start warming up gradually, and when it takes those dips backwards, that's where things can get a little bit tough. So I've already had a couple days. We've caught over 100 bass on Lake St. Clair, but
wow,
we were on a warming trend, and we had some clean water. And early in the season like this, before the fish spawn, there are no bass spawning now anywhere in the state. It's been way too cold. I'd say we're about 2 weeks behind, where we normally should be. But the water temperature yesterday was like 50 degrees. So 60 is the magic mark for the smallies, and the largemouth are, 3 or 4 degrees higher than that. So we're still in that pre-spawn mode. Fish are pretty aggressive during that time of the year, and just kind of been all over the map. It's been a crazy, cold, windy spring.
You talk about spawn. I mean, what are the ethics on fishing for spawning bass? Is there any concern? Is there anything that shows that these fish are released and they survive and go back to the nest? Or what do you think, Gerry?
Well, I mean, true people who are hardcore ethical, they won't fish for them at all on the beds. Visually cast to them. What happens on Lake St. Clair? If you're out there in the month of May, whether you can see the fish or not, you are catching fish off of their beds. Even if the water's a little bit tinted and you can't see the nest, if you're fishing on St. Clair in the month of May, you're catching fish off their beds, whether you're intentionally doing it or not. So, here's the deal. We have a catch and release season on Lake St. Clair, and you cannot harvest bass or have tournaments out there until the third weekend in June. And, it may not be good for those individual fish. They will go right back to the bed, but if you were harvesting, obviously you take the fish off, and, the eggs or the fry are just left unguarded, and they get wiped out. the fish that you catch and put back, they do swim right back to the nest. I mean, there's some, a little bit of period where they're off of it, but that rule seems to work well for Lake St. Clair. We've got a real healthy fish population, and you're going to have some collateral damage doing that, but the bass population does not seem to have suffered.
Lake St. Clair.
Other parts of our state, it opens it opens Memorial Weekend.
Yeah.
So as far as protecting fish, especially, let's just say in the northern part of the lower peninsula, the rule serves no purpose because it's like full-blown spawn as soon as the season opens, and you can harvest them. So, I guess the thought was originally fish get a lot less pressure in northern Michigan, but it's not the case anymore. So I just think practicing good catch and release ethics during the spawn is important.
So is Lake St. Clair the only place you can fish right now, or are there other waters as well?
No, you can fish the entire state. We changed that rule, or they changed it. God, it's almost been 10 years, and it's catch and release all year round. I mean, before, you couldn't even catch a bass on Lake St. Clair until almost July, which nobody followed the rule anyway. I mean, how can you expect people not to fish until July?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to happen, especially in Michigan. People got cabin fever, and as soon as the ice leaves and the weather breaks, you want to go fishing. So, it's been a nice change. You don't have to look over your shoulder anymore and say you're fishing for pike or walleye or, when every other species was open.
Yeah.
And not bass weren't. It just became. It was an unenforceable rule and one that was silly, to be honest with you.
And you talk about Lake St. Clair. I mean, that body of water is. It's really something. I mean, a fish factory is a term I hear, and it's overused, but there's nothing like Lake St. Clair.
No, I've fished all over the state, and we have a lot of great fishing just about everywhere in the Great Lakes. I mean, Saginaw Bay, Big Bay, Little Bay de Noc, Traverse Bay, Thunder Bay and Alpena, Chenal Islands. The big water has some of the best smallmouth fishing anywhere in the country, the Great Lakes system. But Lake St. Clair in particular is very unique because it's basically a gigantic wide spot between the St. Clair River and Detroit River, and it's a featureless body of water, really, but it's basically a giant nursery. I mean, it's important to muskie, it's important to bass, walleye, everything. And you have that current flow that moves through that lake constantly. So it's a very, very unique body of water, and there's nothing like it on the Great Lakes.
Do you target just smallmouth, or is there enough of a largemouth population here in Michigan to even go after?
What happens is I'd say probably 50-60% of my clientele are from out of town, and they don't come here to target largemouth. They want smallies.
Because they don't have smallies back where they come from?
Or, a lot of people come from down south, believe it or not, to come up here and catch smallmouth bass. They just don't have them available.
Gotcha.
I've had 2 crews in from California already this year, so flying all the way from San Diego to fish Detroit.
Isn't that cool?
It is.
And it's right there in your backyard.
Yeah. No, we got great largemouth populations. Sometimes when, the winds won't allow us to access the smallmouth, which are, usually out on the main lake, and that's true in Saginaw Bay, St. Clair, most of the places, and the largemouth can be back in the canals, some of the more protected areas, and sometimes you have to go after them if you have people who are here for 3 or 4 day trip and the wind's blowing and they don't want to sit in a hotel.
Sure.
So I've had to use largemouth, many, many, many times over my guiding career to just sort of save a day,
Hang tight, Gerry. We got to take a break. We're talking with Gerry Gostenik, GreatLakesBassFishing.com, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. More after the break, talking about bass fishing here in Michigan. It's a national destination. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning Archery has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. That means what, 76 years now? Something like that. I don't know. I'm not good at math. Roland Boning invented ferrule tight back then to glue broadheads to what at the time were wood arrow shafts. Well, these days, of course, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products, new designs, a new manufacturing process. It's interesting. A company's been around for 3/4 of a century, and they don't just sit back and watch the industry leave them behind, the archery industry. They're right there continuing to innovate, come up with new products. I'm real happy to be working with Boning and real happy to be using Boning products as I am in the turkey woods this spring. On my rig, I have several different Boning products. And there's a good bet that you as a target archer or a bow hunter are using Boning products. You might not even know it, but I would suggest you give them a look. The website to boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. While you are online, of course, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to this site, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. GreatLakesBassFishing.com, the website of Gerry Gostenik, one of Michigan's best known, if not the best known, bass guide out there. Gerry, you were talking about the Great Lakes. What about some of these northern inland lakes? I was talking about, the show being heard in Houghton Lake. Is that a bass fishery?
Houghton Lakes, it's got, they have quite a few tournaments up there, but it's not known as one of the better inland bass lakes. Some of the better ones, just off the top of my head, Burt Lake, Mullet Lake, Grand Lake, Long Lake over by Alpena, a lot of the inland lakes around Traverse City, Charlevoix, Green Lake, Duck Lake, Lake Walloon Lake. Most of the good smallmouth water are, we have two types of inland lakes in Michigan. You sort of have those dark, tannic type waters, and then you have like the real crystal clear places like Torch Lake where you can see the bottom in 25 feet. So Lake Charlevoix is another one that comes to mind. So a lot of the bigger inland lakes have, real good smallmouth populations, and you can catch some big ones in there.
Whether it's
that rivals the Great Lakes.
Whether it's Torch Lake or Lake St. Clair, when you get crystal clear water like that, how do you catch a fish out of water when they can look up and see you there?
Well, that's when light line becomes real important. Baits that are, sort of natural looking, translucent. We fish a lot of drop shots and Ned rigs, and my experience, my preferences on the real clean, clear water lakes, I like to use baits that are a lot more subtle in color, natural looking versus, gaudy chartreuse type stuff. And, you can get away with that stuff in clearer water or dirtier water, but, I tend to match the baits to the water clarity.
Why do I never hear about bass anglers using live bait or trolling? Is it just the mentality of it?
In tournament fishing for bass, it's against the rules,
right?
So, and I just think it's something that's just grown over the years. It's the whole culture of bass fishing. People just use artificial baits. That would be like a trout fisherman on a flies only stream drowning crawlers in there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's sort of against the ethics, and all the serious bass fishermen just don't use it.
No, culture
not
is
that it's not productive.
It would work, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would work.
Right.
Yeah. Culture is the word I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just not the culture of today's bass fishermen. I mean, all these younger kids, the high school and college bass clubs and tournaments are super, super popular. We never had them back when I was that age. It would have been awesome. But, these kids grow up on Kevin Van Dam and Mark Zona and Bassmaster, and you're not going to see people drowning spot-tail minnows for bass watching that. So, especially this younger generation of kids that are fishing now, or some of the, these kids got a lot of good equipment, stuff that we never had, and a lot of knowledge behind them. There's a lot of good young fishermen these days.
Are you a tournament guy at all, Gerry?
I used to be. I fished a professional tournament trail for a dozen years. I traveled all over the country, but I just got to a point in my life, if you want to have a good, stable home life and be around, I'm happy just guiding now. I sleep in my own bed most nights, and that's just where I'm at in my life,
That's interesting, because I hear a lot of people, who love to fish, recreational anglers, weekend warriors, and they say, man, I'd love to do, and they'll tell me either one of two things. I'd love to be a tournament fisherman, or I would love to be a fishing guide or a charter captain. And I always say, be very careful about what you wish for, because these things are not like they look like from the outside. It looks like you just get paid to fish, but there's an awful lot of work, an awful lot of prep time, a lot of expense, and a lot of road time behind these things. Isn't there, Gerry?
Yeah, being a guide, which, I probably fish 200 days a year. I have 3 or 4 guys that are underneath me helping me out, so I organize about 400 guide trips a year, and just that in itself is a lot of work. The phone time, the schedule coordinating, and you've got to be a people person. This is not something that you can just go out and be quiet in the boat. And if you're not a good people person, it's just like sales. You have to want to be around people, and you have fishermen of all skill levels. Some people need some help. Your equipment's going to get torn up over the course of the year. I had already had a rod broken. Second day in, and that's just part of the job, so it's a people business, and the number of fish you catch is actually secondary.
Yes, and you have to, as a fishing guide or a charter captain, show somebody a good time, even when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, when the weather doesn't cooperate, when the fish don't cooperate. If you can get people to leave and say, you know what, that was fun anyway, I would come back, well, then you've done your job, Gerry.
Yeah. If you can't make people come back, you're not doing your job. People understand you can have bad weather, or, some days the fish just don't bite as well as other days. That's just part of it. But, my goal is to make somebody want to come back and fish with me or one of my guys again.
And you say people do that from across the country. They come here to Michigan, which we have in our backyard and sometimes take for granted. They come here to fish smallies.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had 2 crews from California already. And one of them sent me a text after they got home, and they said, Gerry, we travel all over the world, but our favorite thing to do is to come to Michigan and smallmouth fish with you.
Man.
So it's a big business here. I see all the boats and trucks. We get a lot of people who come from Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky that, tow their own boats up here and fish, because they just don't have the amount of water or the type of quality of fishing we do. And those places are, 5, 6, 7 hour drive, and guys will come up here for 2 or 3 days, 4 days. But our bass fishery is a big driver of tourism in this state. A lot more than the people who are in charge of the Pure Michigan campaign or some of those things. I don't even think they have a clue how much money that these guys bring into our state. Not just for me, but license sales, hotels, restaurants, all that typical tourism stuff, but it's specifically for bass fishing.
That's an interesting point, because unless you're in that world, which I'm not, you hear about, and I'm guilty of this too, I admit this, salmon and trout, walleye, even muskies, maybe even perch fishing. As far as promotion and marketing, bass doesn't get that attention, at least here in Michigan.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But it gets a lot of attention now Unfortunately, though, we've got, two of the biggest names in the sport, Kevin Van Dam and Mark Zona, are national figures, and they do a lot of their filming, and some of the promotional work they do on the water is all out here, and those guys are two of the biggest names in the sport, and they're from our home state. So, I get those guys throw a lot of trips my way too. I'll ask them who to go with or whatever, and I'll get half a call and say, "Hey, I was at a show in Florida and said to call you."
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little bit, Gerry. I don't know if you've moved or something, but just a heads up. We've only got a couple.
No.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. Hey, listen, when somebody books a day with you on the water, what can they expect? What are you going to give them?
Well, hopefully, a good solid day of bass fish. You learn a little bit.
It's worse, Gerry. It's worse. Your signal's worse.
All right. How about now?
I think that's going to be better. What can they expect from a day on the water with you?
Well, hopefully they have a good time, first and foremost. And, some people are experienced fishermen. They don't necessarily need the top techniques or anything like that, but just to put fit and have a good solid day in the water.
Gerry, on that note, I'm going to let you go because we're out of time and the signal's bad anyway. So Gerry Gostenik, he's your guy. If you want to book a bass fishing trip here in Michigan, he's one of the top guys out there. Check out his website, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. In fact, I first learned about Gerry watching him on Michigan Outdoors TV. So he's very well known and very well respected. His website, GreatLakesBassFishing.com, GreatLakesBassFishing.com. And I love the fact that he says people come from across the country here to Michigan to fish bass. That is just again, I think it's very, very cool. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a couple of more thoughts, just kind of wrapping up what we've talked about this week on the show, and we'll work our way toward wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. You know he's going to have another great recipe, and I often don't know, though, is it going to be fish or is it going to be wild game? This time of year, I'm thinking it's either going to be turkey or maybe walleye, maybe steelhead. I don't know. Dave loves to surprise us. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can always reach me via email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We will take a break. When we come back, more right here on Outdoor Magazine. Sorry about that, Charlie. There we go. Trying to text and check things out and do a radio show when actually, you know what? That's bad on me. My first and foremost priority right now is to do this Outdoor Magazine radio show. It's something I love to do. It's something I appreciate you listening. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN in Ludington. Let's go just up the road to Manistee, WMLQ 97.7. You know, I did a West Michigan sweep here. Muskegon as well, WKBZ 1090 AM. I should have started south and worked my way north, but I kind of jumped around there. And you can, speaking of jumping around, let's go to the east side of the state. You can hear us in Saginaw on WSTW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now, as I am every week, to record this show. I appreciate their granting me access to their facilities. I'm here with Charlie Root. You can hear him. And the weather's just getting nice enough now again that the crowds are started. Charlie. They're not like the crowds they are. They're not like they will be, say, come June, when we won't even be able to get vehicles out of the driveway because there'll be so many here chanting, Charlie, Charlie. And they're not carrying flames and pitchforks. They're actually signs in praise of Charlie. So, Charlie Root, I appreciate your help here in the studio. Also, Oh, quick reminder, too. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reeder Landscaping. My friends at Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reeder create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. They've done a wonderful job. They have a water feature in the backyard, expanded the patio. Now for maintenance things, they come over and they trim the trees, they spray the yard. I don't have them mow the yard anymore, because I actually like mowing the yard. I know it's weird, but I like mowing the grass mainly for the exercise, for the steps and just getting out. And I did have to mow the yard twice now, so it's getting to be that time of year. ReederLandscaping.com is the website, ReederLandscaping.com. And I can tell you there are some turkeys roosted behind their facilities too. But don't tell anybody that, all right? I shouldn't even have mentioned that. That was my mistake. Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to regret that. I know I am. Happy Mother's Day. This is Mother's Day weekend. A big happy Mother's Day to my wonderful, beautiful wife, Denise, my mom, Peggy, my mother-in-law, Eddie, my daughter, Jessica, my daughter-in-law, Jessica. Moms are the glue that holds the family together. Maybe your mom is still here. Maybe she's gone. But maybe she's gone on to a better Mother's Day, right? But happy Mother's Day, moms. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you do for us and you do for our families. So let me see what else is going on here. Let me make sure. Okay, I didn't start a timer, so I'm running blind here. I'm really having a rough segment this time around. Okay, so the Goose Fence is about ready to go back. Speaking of Reeder in the backyard, the Goose Fence is about ready to go up in the backyard. The house that we live in has a pond adjacent to the backyard, and I love it because there are geese back there, and there are ducks back there, and there are muskrats, and there are deer, and it's just beautiful. And I used to like geese until I moved to this house. And now I think of them as great big flying rats. I have no use for geese anymore. They just make such a mess. And I've been putting up this goose fence every year. I finally figured out, people say, oh, put a string up there or put a fishing line 6 inches above the ground. That'll stop. No, it doesn't. It doesn't stop them at all. The only thing I have found that'll stop them is probably a shotgun, which I can't use because I'm just inside. Well, not probably. I can't use because I'm just inside the city limit. I put up this short snow fence, and it's green, so it blends in. It looks pretty nice. It does the job. And you'll say, well, Avery, geese can fly. They can fly over that fence. I know that. But apparently they don't know that because they won't cross it. But I was doing a live stream here in the studio before we started to record the radio show. And somebody suggested an avian spray that they say you spray on your grass and it makes the grass taste bad so the geese won't come up in the yard because they're coming up to eat the grass. So I'm going to try that. That would be a lot easier than certainly putting up the goose fence. A reminder, too, this is the month of May. If you are interested in elk hunting or bear hunting in Michigan this year, this is the time to apply for those coveted tags. Go ahead and apply for an elk tag. You're not going to get one. And I'm not either. Now, I say that somewhat jokingly because roughly 100 people will get tags. But the 39,990 others who apply are not going to. I think the best odds on a Michigan elk tag are just to apply for the pure Michigan hunt because you can apply multiple times. But I will apply, knowing I won't get a tag. I will apply because if you don't apply, you're not going to get a tag for sure. I am excited, though, about applying for my Michigan bear tag this year. I only have 1 point, but that's enough to get the third season in Newberry. And I do plan on hunting with Johnny Bowler, my buddy Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer. I had him on in the last segment of the first hour, by the way. If you are thinking, if you're a downstater and thinking you want to hunt bears in the North Country, which is the only place the seasons are open, you're probably going to need some help. You're going to need somebody local who will procure some property for you, some baits for you, and keep those baits going. So be poking around now. Now is the time to get that going. What else? The turkey season continues. My quest continues. I'm playing cat and mouse. Details as the season goes along. Wild Game Chef Dave Minar coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, and I certainly appreciate you being along with us on this Mother's Day weekend. If you are a first-time listener, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. If you're a long-time friend of the show, I can't thank you enough for that. But if you are, you know that we wrap up each week's show with wild game chef and just darn good guy, wild game chef Dave Minar, and he's with us once again with, I don't know, like I say, Dave likes to surprise me. David, welcome back. How are you, buddy?
I'm very good, Michael, and yourself?
I'm doing great. So listen, what's the recipe in store for us this time?
We have a wild turkey breast Parmesan.
Oh,
and I've
yeah.
done this a lot of times, in the past when we used to be able to buy wild turkey in a whole birds. So, they don't do that anymore, so things have changed a bunch. So anyways, you need about 8 to 10 ounces of turkey breast steaks. And you're going to be for 4 portions on this. So you're going to use 1 per person. You're going to need some flour to dredge in, a couple of beaten up eggs, a couple of cups of dry breadcrumbs. If you're going to make more than 4 portions, so it's going to be 1 28-ounce can of California tomatoes. The Midwest tomatoes are a little sweet for my taste, but if you have your own hand, your can that you did yourself, by all means, use it if you like it. I like the imported ones, though. The Romas. 8-ounce can of tomato puree, a medium diced onion, pretty fine, 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, depending on your taste, diced up fine. I use about a teaspoon of Italian spice, or if you like, you can use basil and oregano. I like that combination. It really gives a good flavor. Black pepper to taste. You're going to need pretty close to a cup of Parmesan cheese, a 12-ounce mozzarella cheese shredded, olive oil to saute with, and flour. So you're going to check the breast, make sure that the shots none strayed down from the head neck area into the breast meat. Check that, and if there's any bloodied meat, trim it off a little bit. And in a nice heavy saute pan with a little bit of olive oil, saute the onions and the garlic for just a couple minutes, and then add your spices. Saute that up a little bit to bring the flavor out of them because they're oil soluble. And then crush or chop the tomatoes kind of small. I put them in a bowl and I take my hand and I just crush through them, and it works out just great. So add the tomatoes and the juice. When boiling, you want to reduce down to a simmer, add the puree, and you might want to cook it down to get rid of some of the liquid out of it, but still concentrate the flavor for maybe 10, 12 minutes. Now, after you've removed all of the shad, the feathers, and the silver skin, pound each breast down to about a ½ inch thick or even a little more than that between saran wrap with a meat mallet. And if you don't do that, you're going to pucker up and they're going to draw up. I don't know why turkey does that, but they sure does it. And if you don't pound it down real good, you're going to end up with more of a ball of meat than a steak. So dredge them in flour, dip them in the beaten up eggs, roll them in crumbs, and in a not too hot of a pan, you don't want to burn the crumbs, add some olive oil and brown it on both sides. Remove to a casserole or a baking sheet, whatever you want to do. Now, if you're going to use a baking sheet, you need enough size to hold 4 portions or more, depending on what you're going to do. Add spoon in 4 pools of sauce and place a breast on each after you brown it off nice on both sides. Spoon enough sauce to cover the breast. Sprinkle with mozzarella cheese and top with some Parmesan, and bake about 20 minutes in a 350-degree oven. And you want to save enough sauce for the top. You want to add some, if you want, you could put linguine or fettuccine or whatever your favorite pasta is. And after you get it all done in the oven, you're going to put a small amount or large amount of pasta and put the turkey breast right next to it and spoon sauce over, top with a little more Parmesan. And if you like, a little bit of chopped parsley goes a long way to make everything look real good. And it is just a killer way, another way to use more and more meals out of just putting the breast in a crock pot or something like that. You can get a lot of meals out of a nice sized turkey, and I love it.
But don't expect this wild turkey to taste like a butterball out of the grocery store, right?
Oh, no, they got a lot of flavor. You know, they're eating bugs and grass and acorns and stuff. Wild turkey, to me, far surpasses any kind of store-bought turkey, unless it's like a free range out in a field, that is eating bugs and grass and like that. The domestic turkey can't hold a candle to a wild turkey at all.
All right, David, always a pleasure. I appreciate you joining us. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right. Did you get your bird yet, Mike?
Not yet, but it's going to happen here soon.
Me too. I haven't been out yet at all. The best restaurant's been so busy. It's just been ridiculous.
Well, that's good.
It is. It's a real good thing. So, all right. Well, thank you.
All right. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. Because, again, if you weren't listening, if you weren't following me on social media, listening to the podcast, listening to the radio show, there'd be no reason to do this. And I'm just too darn old to find something else to do. I don't want to find something else to do. I like this, and I appreciate your support. The website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Check that out. And again, if you want to get in touch with me, questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions, share your pictures, share your stories, send them to me in an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My name is Mike Avery, and I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.